So hello, good afternoon from Belgrade, and good morning to the forum participants from Canada because of the time difference. Allow me to introduce myself. And I'm Olgica Marinković, Advocacy and Education Officer responsible for the promotion of the literature and publishing program at the Embassy of Canada in Belgrade. Our embassy has a jurisdiction working for the embassy. Our embassy has a jurisdiction over Serbia, North Macedonia, and for Montenegro. And I've been working in the embassy for over 30 years, and I will be moderating this Publishers Forum today. Our partnering institution for the organization of the forum is the Association of Professional Publishers of Serbia. With our joint efforts, we have been able to get interested a total of 54 participants from Canada, from Serbia, and from North Macedonia for the forum. We would also like to thank our colleagues from the Creative Industries Program of the Department of Foreign Affairs Canada for their great support in the initial organization and promotion of this event, as well as the Association Lyric Canada Books for their recommendation for a number of excellent Canadian panelists who will be participating at the forum. And now it is my really great pleasure to invite Her Excellency, Madam Kati Chaba, Ambassador of Canada to Serbia, North Macedonia, and Montenegro, to open the panel. Thank you, Ambassador, for joining us today.
Hello and welcome to the first Canada-Serbia Publishers Forum. I'm pleased to be able to open this virtual event that reflects the continuing interest for fruitful cooperation between Canadian and Serbian publishers, despite the geographical distances, different size of the publishing markets, and the new challenges that we have all been going through during the pandemic. It is great to see that regional publishers from North Macedonia, both Macedonian and Albanian language ones, have also joined the forum. Having myself a love for good literature, I have discovered that the thematic sensibility in Canada, in Serbia, and in North Macedonia is quite similar. You are all looking for new, diversified voices, and you are eager to explore multicultural influences in your literary communities. I'm pleased to see that both Anglophone and Francophone Canadian publishers are present at this forum. Over 300 Canadian books have been translated into Serbian in the last 15 years, and over 30 into Macedonian and Albanian in the last 5 years in North Macedonia. Canada is also proud of its multicultural voices in literature, of which many had their origins in this region, including those of Serbian origin, David Albahari, Negovan Rajic, Vladimir Tasic, Ljubica Milicevic, illustrator Dusan Petricic, and of Macedonian origin, Alin Apostolska, for example. And there are many more, especially the second-generation immigrant writers who are forging their paths within the wealth of the Canadian literary scene. This event is also a chance for Canadian publishers to explore further Serbian, but also Macedonian and Albanian literature and publishing. I'm quite impressed with the array of excellent presentations of panelists, both from Canada and from Serbia and North Macedonia, that will enhance further cooperation between publishers. You will be able to hear some of the success stories, but challenges as well, that our publishing communities have been going through in terms of rule of law, copyright, digital and sound books, opportunities for translation grants at both ends, challenges in publishing affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, and many more. I'm also eager to find out more about Canada's role at the Frankfurt Book Fair as the guest of honor, both in 2020 in a virtual space and in 2021 through physical participation, we hope, at the Frankfurt Fair, but also across Germany and spilling over to other countries all over Europe. The interest in Canadian multicultural voices in Serbia and the region started back in 2003 when Canada was the guest of honor at the Belgrade Book Fair. Serbian and North Macedonian publishers, literary festivals, and book fairs hosted many great Canadian writers, and I would mention just a few: Naim Katan, Gaëtan Brulot, Margaret Atwood, Kim Toohey, Guy Gavriel Kay, David Omel, Margaret Macmillan, Alberto Manguel, and many more. Some of their books have been translated into Serbian and other languages from the region with the support of Canada's International Translation Grant Program aimed at foreign publishers. I'm sure that you will all be interested in finding out more details on the new application process, deadlines, etc. You will also be able to hear about Serbia's version of the Translation Grant Program aimed at international publishers. I will look forward to reading new titles in translation down the road as a result of the meetings you have organized during this Publishers Forum. Do not hesitate to contact our embassy regarding any additional information or assistance you may need with respect to cooperation between publishing companies. We are also happy to be involved in supporting you when it comes time to plan and promote the book launching tours of your writers. Let me say a special thank you to the organizational team at the Association of Professional Publishers of Serbia, UPIS, for being our partner in the planning of this forum. Je vous souhaite bonne chance avec vos nouveaux projets et j'espère que vous aurez des belles possibilités de coopération grâce à ce forum. Uverena sam da će vas ovaj skup podstaći da I dalje sarađujete sa kanadskim izdavačima I želim vam puno uspeha u vašim budućim izdavačkim poduhvatima. Thank you, merci, blagodaram, faleminderit I veliko hvala svima. Thanks.
Thank you, Ambassador. As you could see, our ambassador speaks many languages, and it was really like a great pleasure working with Ambassador here because she's fully fluent in Serbian and a bit in Macedonian and a bit in Albanian. So we could actually have all kinds of presentations and book launches and a great promotion of Canadian culture in general, like in local languages. And that's a great asset. Thank you, Ambassador, one more time. Before I announce the second panelist, let me introduce you to some of the initiatives that the forum was actually based on. We were actually contacted based on the Canada's participation at the Frankfurt Book Fair as a guest of honor that was supposed to happen in person, so actually for 2020. But because of the pandemic situation, as you know, like that's been sort of presented in a virtual space this year and moved on for the 2021. Hopefully it will be just as we planned. Canada's commitment to present Canadian literature in publishing as its best at the Frankfurt Book Messe has been proved by having established Canada, what we call FBM 2020, as an entity in collaboration with the Association of Canadian Publishers, ACP, and the Association Nationale des Éditeurs de Livres, ANEL, to manage in French and English the role and involvement of the Canadian book publishing industry at the Frankfurt Book Fair in 2020 and eventually in 2021. Allow me now to invite our next panelist, Ms. Gillian Fizette, Executive Director of Canada FBM 2020, and you will be introduced to the Canadian preparatory activities, plan program, and the list of contemporary Canadian authors and artists who will be presented during 2020 so far and in 2021, not only in Frankfurt, but in Germany and spilling over to the whole Europe. So I would now ask Gillian to join us as a second panelist. Hello, Gillian.
Hello.
Welcome to Belgrade.
Thank you so much, and bonjour à tous et à toutes. Dobar dan, and thank you to the team at the embassy. Thank you, Ambassador. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's so nice. I used to work before I held this job. I worked for a publishing house in Canada, and I fondly remember doing deals with Serbian publishers, and it's nice to see that connection is still taking place, and as perhaps even more strengthened than ever before. So thank you.
We would also like to present you our next panelist, who is actually from Belgrade, Serbia. We have with us, as you could see, three gentlemen. From my left to right, we have Mr. Vladislav Bajac, the writer, publisher, and director of the publishing house Geopoetica. On my right side, it's Mr. Zoran Hamovic, the director of the publishing house Clio and president of the Serbian Association of Professional Publishers, and Mr. Gojko Božović, who is our poet and publisher, publishing house Arhipelag. I would give a word now to Zoran Hamovic, who will, on behalf of our sort of partners, say a few words at the beginning of the panel.
Thank you. Good afternoon or good evening. Dear Miss Chaba, distinguished colleagues, dear friends, I would like to say a few words directly to Ms. Chaba. I would like to thank her for few years she was here in Belgrade. I would like to thank her for a great, really excellent diplomatic job, to her passion for arts, for artists, good relationship with the writers and publishers. And I am so sorry that she have to go to Canada, but she's always present here, and in the future I would like to see her very often like our guest. Please don't forget Serbia and Belgrade, and we will, of course, we will stay in touch. Good luck, I would like to say, and good position and good destination for our friend, Miss Chaba. You know, it's a really great pleasure for me that we have managed to organize this first virtual meeting and connect all of us. Thank you for being here and for the ability to discuss topics close and important to us. I'm sure that there are many of us who would like to be in Frankfurt under the auspices of the old normality, physically closer and without electronic mediation. But there are those who, in the spirit of the new normality, will accept that this method as efficient and quite appropriate. In the past 2 decades, especially in the first, Serbia and Canada in the field of publishing have developed and improved relations by increasing the network of publishers, authors, organizers of literary festivals, and experts as well. Canada was the guest of honor at the Belgrade Book Fair in 2003, when the first agreement in cooperation with the book fair in Quebec was signed. An invaluable number of titles was translated from Serbian into French and English, thanks to Canadian publishers, but also with the support of Serbian Ministry of Culture, just as a large number of works by Canadian authors was translated into Serbian, thanks to the support of Art Council of Canada. We should also not forget that a large number of Canadian authors visited Serbia, introducing themselves to our audience. Several delegations of publishers and a larger number of writers from Serbia also had the opportunity to participate at the book fairs or literary festivals in Canada. I'm glad that 3 of us here participated the founding and development of Serbia-Canada cooperation from the beginning. Today, when we have in front of us an old problem, and new circumstances. In any case, many questions to which we seek answers and support for the profession in which we work. We will try to recognize the possibilities and opportunities for publishing activities in a multicultural environment, consider the challenges brought to publishing by new technology, experiences in publishing digital and audio editions, and then try to compare achievements of various models of support for literary creation and publishing. At the end of today's forum, we will certainly have to pay attention to the dangers posed by COVID-19 and the possibilities to stabilizing and protecting publishing, both in Canada and Serbia, as well the whole region. Especially, I'm pleased to welcome the participation of our colleagues from North Macedonia. I would like to recommend our today's virtual meeting for individual meetings, getting to know each other and finding opportunities for cooperation. Particularly, I would like to emphasize that the topics we are dealing with today are an important part of the engagement of our association. We care very much about active cooperation with the colleagues in Canada and North Macedonia and the transfer of knowledge for the professional challenges that the pandemic has imposed. Considering the significance of this virtual meeting, I would like to thank the Embassy of Canada for its support. I greet you all, both participants and listeners, and those who will enjoy the privilege of subsequent reading, and I wish all of us a lot of success in today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoran. So I would now like to invite Gillian. Maybe she could join us now and give her presentation. I think we solved the technical problem. Hi, Gillian, again.
Hello. Okay, I'm sorry about that earlier, but I think you should be able to see my screen. Yes?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. Great. Okay, I just want to... Okay, I can't see you, so it's a bit odd, but thank you again for inviting me. And if there are technical difficulties, please just speak up and let me know. As we were saying earlier, or as the introduction put it very nicely, Canada was invited to be the guest of honor for 2020. And Canada-FPM 2020 is the organization that was created by the publishing industry and given the mandate by the Government of Canada to represent the Canadian publishing industry and its authors and illustrators in French and in English in the role of guest of honor for the Frankfurt Book Fair in 2020. Are you able to see my slide in Serbian?
Yes, if you can just put the full screen. We have your...
You see the presentation slide?
Yes. We saw it, on the side as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Now,
okay. Now it's great. Yes.
Okay. All right. So, yes, we, Canada-FPM 2020, that's our logo in the bottom right. We are responsible for the publishing industry's participation as well as the authors and illustrators. However, we are joined by a multitude of other partners from Canada in making this project possible. The Department of Canadian Heritage is the main partner, and they oversee the entire project and also provide Canada-FPM 2020 with its financial funding. The Canada Council of the Arts has been instrumental in this project from day one. They provided a incentive for translation for German publishers to buy the rights to Canadian authored and illustrated books, and then to get a translation grant, a special one just for German publishers. The Canada Council for the Arts has also provided a envelope towards supporting authors and illustrators travel and accommodation expenses to Germany when they are invited to attend, let's say, a festival or the Frankfurt Book Fair. Finally, the Canada Council has also been tremendously involved in creating a cultural program that represents Canada's wide array of creative and cultural industries. So Canada FBM 2020 is responsible for the literary side of things, and the Canada Council, along with a lot of other partners, is doing the artistic programming side of things. We also receive a great deal of support from the Embassy of Canada in Germany and Global Affairs Canada, both on the public affairs side of things and the Trade Commissioner side of the embassy. And they have been instrumental in providing us with contacts, B2B opportunities with German publishers and organizations, and then on the public affairs side with promoting cultural diplomacy in Germany and making the link between Canadians. Finally, we have Telefilm Canada and Music Canada, who have also contributed to our overall presence. And I'll just let you quickly read through that. And I'll say that I would be remiss if I did not mention that the 13 territories and provinces of Canada have also contributed greatly to our project over the course of the last 4 years. Each and every one of them has a cultural ministry within their government, and each of those ministries have contributed to this project, whether it's through support to their publishers or in contributing cultural content to Canada's presence as guest of honor. With regards to the industry side of things, Canada, at the very beginning of this project in 2017, set itself up to, with a goal to have 200 Canadian authors and authored and illustrated books translated into German by 2020 and published on the German market. So that could be Germany, Austria, Switzerland by 2020. We exceeded that goal, and it's more like over 300 titles have been translated, which was incredible and mainly based, and when I say we have translated or we have sold, I don't mean we, I mean the Canadian publishers and the Canadian literary agents who really took it upon themselves to promote Canadian writing, to promote their authors, and Canada FBM 2020 supported them by creating B2B opportunities, fellowships, trade missions to Germany, trade missions to Canada, where we brought German publishers to Canada, different kinds of exchanges. We also developed professional programs for publishers and agents who were new to selling rights. So that was our sort of contribution to making this possible. And one other thing that I should mention to the Serbian publishers and Macedonian publishers who are taking part today is that we created an online rights catalog that is available on our website and that promotes Canadian books. All of the books on that website or on that rights catalog have been uploaded by Canadian publishers and by Canadian literary agents. And the idea behind that was that German publishers could come and essentially shop and see what was available, where books that had rights available, not just for Germany, but for other territories as well. So I recommend you have a look at that. That first part that I've just explained, the 200 plus titles, was the first major concentration of this project, was ensuring that Canadian books would be available in Germany as a starting point and then spill into other territories as well. The second part of the project that we have been concentrating and focusing our efforts on has been in the presentation of those those books and those authors. So the idea was that in 2020, we would shed light or put a spotlight on Canadian authors and illustrators who had their books translated in Germany. And the plan at the time was to bring those authors with us to Germany throughout the year in 2020. That was part of what we call our literary program. And our literary program needs to be representative of Indigenous, Francophone, and Anglophone literature, all of the regions of Canada, so from coast to coast to coast. It was meant to also include books up for all ages, and also all literary genres. So not just fiction, but also nonfiction and children's picture books and travel books and cookbooks. All of that was supposed to be part of our literary program and representative of the authors and illustrators who were going to go to Germany in 2020 and represent us. Unfortunately, I mentioned that Canada was successful in translating over 300, selling the rights to over 300 books. We always knew that it would be impossible to bring 300 authors with us to Germany. So in the end, it was more like 70 to 80 authors. And if you'd like to have a look at which authors were selected to be part of our official delegation, you can check it out on our website. Canada's presence in 2020 at the Frankfurt Book Fair, we were meant to have essentially a presentation at different, or a representation, let's say, at different literary festivals, houses, events throughout the year in German-speaking Europe. And then it would have all culminated just a few weeks ago at the Frankfurt Book Fair. So these were some of the events that we were planning to have a presence at. And then at the Frankfurt Book Fair, where essentially 50 to 60 authors would have taken part in a 5-day physical presence at our Guest of Honor Pavilion, in other venues around the book fair, and at our collective stands. Canada has 2 collective stands, Québec Éditions and Leave Canada Books. And this is just an example. I'm sure most of you who are participating today have been to the Guest of Honor Pavilion. Maybe some of you haven't, and that's quite all right. I went to Frankfurt, I think, 8 years in a row before I made it over to the Guest of Honor Pavilion when I was selling rights. So that's completely understandable. I would have loved to share with you what our pavilion was supposed to look like. However, given everything that has changed, we will have to make changes to it in the next year to adhere to public health and safety measures. We were also planning to have a big presence all around the book fair, like I said, in the Agora, and then on our collective stand. So Québec Éditions represents French-Canadian publishers from all over Canada. They were normally, as of last year, they were always in Hall 5.1 in the European Hall with the other French publishers. And Leave Canada Books, which represents Anglophone and Francophone publishers, independent publishers, was always in Hall 6. And I'm now forgetting how that was going to change this year, but it doesn't matter because we were not there this year. What I do want to say about the collective stands is that this year, for Canada's Guest of Honor presence, they had planned to have new stands that reflected our singular plurality brand and goal slogan, and that also had stages so that we could have presentations of our authors and our publishers at these stages, so that there would be more of a public presentation about Canada in the B2B part of the book fair as well. And finally, the Literary Agents Center, we were very excited. Our literary agents from Canada had planned to congregate in one section this year at the Frankfurt, in the Frankfurt International Rights Hall to celebrate Canada's presence. Unfortunately, none of this happened because of the COVID-19 pandemic. our presence at a number of events was immediately canceled. However, we quickly pivoted and got on board to do virtual programming for this year's special edition of the Frankfurt Book Fair. And what that meant was that we sent film crews across Canada into the homes, or maybe not the homes, but the backyards or the outside areas around 10 authors, and interviewed them and produced 3 mini documentaries that touched on various themes, some relevant to the world's situation right now, the pandemic, while others were more representative of our Canadian diversity or diverse literary landscape. So you can watch those short mini documentaries on our website, or actually more accessible would be on our YouTube channel, which there's a link at the end of this presentation. And I believe this presentation will be distributed to you. And finally, we also produced a 1-hour exclusive interview with Margaret Atwood, which was very well received rather. Looking ahead to 2021, we are incredibly fortunate and grateful that Slovenia, Spain, and Italy all agreed to let Canada have another chance to be guest of honor next year in 2021. So we are very much looking forward to that presence next year. We are very hopeful that we will be guest of honor in the way that we had initially intended. So meaning that we will be there in a physical space, and that we will be able to bring our authors and our illustrators with us, and our other cultural artists, creators from Canada with us. In the meantime, our goal is to really promote the books that were sold to German publishers, the rights that were sold to German publishers, and that were eventually translated and then produced and published onto the German market this year. So even though we are guest of honor next year, the majority of German publishers did publish their books this year in 2020. And we are very much of the mind that we need to do everything we can to promote those books and make sure that Canadian authors and illustrators are well represented in German bookstores this year and obviously into next year. So we have engaged in a bookseller campaign. We're putting a lot of time and resources into that booksellers campaign. We have a firm that is working with us to engage with German booksellers to promote our books. We're doing press relations with the media. Basically, we just want to continue the momentum and ensure that the work of our publishers and literary agents from Canada, as well as the work and the investment that came from the German side of things, is well met, and that we have the opportunity as a country to promote our authors and illustrators in the way that we had initially intended, and ensure that Canada will shine in 2021, and that the German audiences and the international audiences, the ambassador mentioned this as well, that the Frankfurt Book Fair is so important for obviously the German audience, but it's even more crucial as an event that can spill into other countries. And we really see that as an opportunity. And we have already begun to see the success of Canada being guest of honor, not just in Germany, but in other territories as well. And so that is our goal. We really do hope that we will be present at the Frankfurt Book Fair with all of you in 2021. And if you'd like to follow our journey, I recommend that you follow us on one of our platforms. I very much look forward to meeting you in 2020 and 2021 rather, and celebrating Canada's diverse literary landscape with you and our other international colleagues. So thank you.
Thank you, Jillian, very much. This was really very interesting, and I'm sure that like many of the publishers and who are following this panel, I'm sure that now they feel invited to the Frankfurt Book Fair next year, and to come and meet with you as well. I would now like to invite our fourth panelist, the last one from the first panel, Catherine Mitchell. Hello, Catherine. Welcome to Belgrade. I'm sure that at least Canadian publishers know Catherine Mitchell for sure, because she's with Canadian publishing with so many years, not to say decades, but she's also a friend to Serbia and to the region, to North Macedonia. She's been in regular contact with so many publishers, so I'm sure that she's also well known in the region. Catherine is actually now representing her own publishing, right? And she's now consulting and published like with the Pajama Press, right? Working with the Pajama Press. But we know Catherine from the time that she was with Tundra, when she was promoting here in Serbia so wonderful children's books. And we actually wanted to invite her now as a sort of a friend of our publishing, in Serbia and in North Macedonia and in the region, to talk us about the multicultural influences on literature and publishing in Canada, and what is her opinion on the opportunities for Serbian and regional publishers. Thank you, Catherine.
Dobar dan, bonjour, greetings, and thank you, Your Excellency. How nice to be leaving so many fans. I'm not surprised. It's wonderful to be here with you. My thanks, Olgica, for this terrific invitation to meet virtually, life as we know it now for the foreseeable future. You've given me a very generous introduction, and I don't want to overplay my involvement here. I certainly have been around a long time, as my hair will attest, but I'm very happy to be here and so delighted to have so many of your Serbian, Macedonian, North Macedonian colleagues here, as well as colleagues from Canada. Next to farmers and gardeners, I think publishers share that most admirable trait, which is an ability to shift to the current situation and remain positive as they look and plan ahead. So I think we do obviously are proving that we have to move with the times. And this is an example. Outside of publishing and working with publishers, Serbians like Creativni Centaur, Liliana, and so on, I have one modest non-book related connection, which I hope you will allow me to mention. I'm sporting a pin, which you may or may not be able to see. It's for the National Curling Association of Serbia. So 3 years ago, when I was coming back from Bologna, my seatmate was a woman who introduced herself as a curler on your national team and who gave me this pin. So I finally have an opportunity to wear it in an appropriate situation. She was returning for more time in training with Canadian curling coaches. I learned a lot on that flight home about connections between our countries. And this is a very popular winter sport. So anyway, who knew? But a better publishing connection is to one of your country's fabulously talented and award-winning illustrators. That's Dusan Peticic, who's made an impressive contribution to Canadian literature and publishing, including newspapers. Toronto-based publishers will recognize his cartoons that ran for many years in the Toronto Star newspaper. I knew him better for his new illustrations in the Jacob Tutu and the Hooded Fang series by celebrated author Mordecai Richler, which was published by Tundra at McClelland and Stewart. The list of his many children's books is long, with awards and honors. So we have a lot of things in common, and he's just one of the many authors that you may know. This leads me to a general description of publishing in Canada, which is the reason that I am here. It's a large country, obviously, as Jillian has described, next to the hugely important American market, which can publish many more books with far larger print runs at less expensive unit cost. So to be competitive in the English language market, at least, that takes great skill and great tenacity, which happily our publishers possess. They also know their readers, and their lists reflect Canadian society in whatever linguistic form that is, and they know what their readers want to read and learn about. So we are very talented as a publishing group. I hope you'll allow me to say that. That success is also seen in the publications of French language publishers, most of whom are based in Quebec, but also found across the country. And now, of course, we have more and more Indigenous publishers from British Columbia, across the Prairie provinces, and as far north as Nunavut. An overdue focus on the importance of Canada's Indigenous peoples is now evident in many lists, including a surge in bilingual, even trilingual language editions. So this is really exciting. Our independent publishers across the country benefit from an array of funding to support writing and bring these stories and books to readers. We get support from the Department of Canadian Heritage, which provides support to publishers and their publishing programs, from respective provincial arts agencies, and Jillian alluded to the various ministries of culture for each of the provinces and territories, and from arts agencies like the Canada Council for the Arts, which focuses on creators from all cultural sectors, including writers and illustrators. And of course, you will be hearing more about translation funding assistance from Megan Mabey in this forum. We also have an export agency, which Jillian noted. The Livre Canada Books is based in Ottawa, and it handles Canada stands at the big fairs such as London, Frankfurt, and Bologna, and often at fairs such as Shanghai and Guadalajara, among others. I did not have the good luck to be able to attend the Guest of Honor year in Belgrade in 2003, but I knew it was happening and it looked fantastic. This support for export marketing for independent publishers is really critical to being competitive, and especially against that American market or up against them. Public policy which recognizes the role in having one's culture reflected widely and in many forms is fundamental to building community and a sense of belonging, and that adds to inclusiveness and understanding diversity. These are values Canadians hold dear. Our literature authors and illustrators with their publishers will be on full display for Canada's Guest of Honor at Frankfurt, which of course, as Jillian has just explained and everyone understands thoroughly, due to COVID, this was moved to 2021. So our fingers are crossed that it moves ahead successfully. The fair themselves, the organizers work very hard to have a lot of varied programming from October and beyond and before, as Jillian described, to maintain that excitement and give support to authors and illustrators and the exciting and impressive array of translations that have taken place. I'm sure you also have missed the enjoyment of meeting publishers face-to-face for those crucial conversations. I know I have. Zoom is great, but it certainly doesn't replace being in that beautiful room that you people in Belgrade are in. It looks fantastic, and I loved seeing that little dog walk across the floor before the meeting got started. Having worked in international publishing for most of my career, I know there are many translations of Canadian books and exports of books all around the world. And this speaks to the importance of telling our own stories and sharing our literature. Of course, learning about others is what makes life interesting and so crucial to understanding. Canada's openness to immigrants and embracing differences has enabled and reinforced this natural curiosity about each other, so evident in the authors published in Canada, which is fabulous for all, writers, readers, and publishers. So in closing, I just want to say I look forward to hearing about your publishing today, and I thank you for this opportunity again to be here. Please stay healthy so we meet at Frankfurt 2021.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm sure that we'll meet again very soon in person. And I would now I'll ask that the panelists from the first panel to kind of switch off in order for us to be able to actually start with the second panel and to invite the panelists from the second panel to join us. So until we are kind of like connected with the panelists from the second panel, I would like to invite the first panelist, Glenn Rollins, who is the co-owner, publisher of learning resources from Brush Education from Edmonton. Hello, Glenn. Welcome to Belgrade.
Nice to be here. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us. And I know that like this week, you're actually running a very busy schedule, but this is something which also is of interest for us for this second panel of the protection of copyrights and the reproduction rights. And just for the audience, that Glenn is actually this week representing Canadian Copyright Institute at the WIPO Standing Committee, right, on copyrights. And I'm sure that you would be able to share us some information from that panel as well, if you have at this moment. And I would just give a word to you, because this is a topic, a theme that is really kind of very interesting for the publishers from, I'm sure, Canada, that's for sure, but also from Serbia and North Macedonia, which are now like in a way facing not only the copyright issues, but the implementation of the copyright and reproduction rights here is not really well kind of implemented. So like we would like to hear your side of how is it actually regulated in Canada, and if there is a chance maybe to share some of the experience in order to be able to actually introduce it here. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much, Olgika, for the invitation to participate today. And I'd like to thank also all of the organizers, both on the Canadian side and on the Serbian side. I know that this sort of event is tough to pull together, so thanks very much. I'm going to be pretty brief. I've got a deck of slides that I'll follow pretty closely, and I hope that will help with the language issues. I'm sorry not to be able to present in Serbian, and I'm impressed by Jillian's slides and by the ambassador's command of languages. But I will try now to share my screen. Sorry for that delay. Just
and now just press the slideshow.
Yeah. So I'm hoping we're good to go.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. So a quick word just on the standing committee. WIPO, which is the World Intellectual Property Organization, is a UN organization, and its mandate is to organize and coordinate international issues around intellectual property. The Standing Committee on Copyright and Related Rights is a committee that has all of the national delegates of the UN system, and then it has many non-governmental organization delegates as well. And as you can imagine, it's a fairly stiff and slow process for making progress in copyright. One indication of that is that broadcasting rights, the rights for broadcasters, have been under discussion for about 20 years, and the term broadcaster is still not defined in that system. So it's an important place to be, but it's on a different pace than the work of publishers, whether they're Serbian publishers or North Macedonian or Canadian. It's important because there is great pressure now throughout the world, and particularly during the pandemic, for copyright creators and owners to share their copyrights without payment. And that is a system that fell into place fairly naturally on a voluntary basis early in the pandemic, with many authors and publishers making their works available for free as a way to ease the transition to virtual education. But like any other independent industry, authors and publishers, creative professionals, and creative industries depend on copyright as essential infrastructure in their ability to make a living. And we also depend on the sales and licensing opportunities that it makes available. So that's why I'm at the Standing Committee on behalf of Canadian authors and publishers. And that's why I try to be patient, as the progress is quite slow. So this is me. This is really the short story about Canada. Canada's got a very long-standing copyright regime, but it was badly disrupted in 2012 when the government of Canada introduced fair dealing as or rather introduced education as a purpose for fair dealing in copyright. And this made an area that had previously been licensed, where schools and universities paid a license fee through a copyright management organization, into an area that was not licensed. The uses continued, and whenever they're tested in court or in a quasi-judicial setting, the proof is very strong that uses continue. What's changed is that copyright holders are no longer paid. So while we're extremely grateful for the Government of Canada's contribution to our industry in the form of direct support through the Department of Canadian Heritage and through the Canada Council for the Arts, we do have a serious concern around this very serious disruption to our landscape. The exception is Quebec, and in Quebec, licensing was disrupted but has settled down again, and the education sector is licensed under COPIBEC, which is the Copyright Management Organization for Quebec. This means that we have a very strong double standard working in Canada. When copyright protected works are copied in Quebec, the payment of a license fee ensures that copyright holders are remunerated. When we're copied outside of Quebec and in Canada, we are not compensated. And the impact of that is that what used to be a very important driver of independent Canadian publishing, which is serving education, is now no longer available as a market. We hope it will return, but at the moment it's not really available as a market. And that really does.
Can I just interrupt?
Yes, of course.
Interrupt you? If you can just press slideshow because it doesn't roll.
The slides aren't advancing?
No, we are just on the first slide. Just to press slideshow.
Okay, no, I'm in slideshow. Thanks, Olgika. And my slides on my screen are advancing, so there must be a problem with the refresh of the
of our side. Okay, now we are fine.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll stay out of slideshow then, because in this view I can actually see what you're seeing, and I'll advance, I hope, to the slide that I was on. Whoops. It's great fun to participate in the modern world of information technology.
True.
Okay. It seems that to make it advance, I'm going to have to toggle back and forth between my PowerPoint and the I'll just pause slightly on these slides in case people want to read them. And
then the full screen, if you have that button to press.
Yeah, I was in full screen and it apparently wasn't working for you, Olgika. So
okay,
as long as this is readable, I think I'll stay in this screen, in this view.
Please go ahead. It's just great now.
Okay. So my message is that this threatens the existence of independent publishing, and it's an important impact on freedom of expression generally, because if you can't earn a living from the work that you do, obviously you have to find different work. And the impact on education in Canada is that it means that educational resources, rather than originating within the Canadian mix of cultures and languages, it means that they'll originate outside the country. Because the schools and universities have claimed the ability to copy for free, it becomes a competitive situation that independent publishers can't compete with. 2012 is 12 years, or going on a decade ago. Actually, the troubles began before the new legislation in 2008, 2009. We've fought successive battles, both in our mediation group, which is the Copyright Board of Canada, and in the courts of Canada. And we're headed for a hearing by the highest court, Canada's Supreme Court, next year in a case called Access Copyright, which is the Copyright Management Organization versus York University. Along the way, we have literally nearly exhausted the resources of the creative sector to fight these battles. And our challenge is that we're fighting organizations, including ministries of education, in the provinces of Canada that are funded through taxpayers and that have an essentially limitless ability to litigate. We're hoping and working very closely with the Government of Canada to find a solution for this in legislation or regulation before we have to abandon the battle in the courts. And we look forward to assistance around that. I know that's a fairly bleak picture of copyright in Canada, but in fact, it's the situation. The damage has been in real time now for many years, and in licensing revenues alone, there's something over $150 million lost in our revenues from the sector that we would have earned if we had the opportunity to sell directly to schools and universities is far greater than that. And in a small university serving markets that are minority markets, as Serbian publishers do, because we're an island in a large sea of English-speaking publishing, that is an amount of money that we have not been able to lose without serious impacts on our industry. The last slide is just my contact information. I'd be very pleased to hear from anybody that wants to follow up or has more questions.
Half of their publishing members will definitely be in touch with you, because this is, to start with, and how to actually find the solution and reach out to the government and for their support in resolving these issues. Now I would like to invite our actually member of the of this coordinating team of this forum. It's Mr. Gojko Božović from the publishing house Arhipelag, who is here with us at this studio. And he will actually try to present you in brief what is the situation in Serbia with respect to the copyright and reprographic rights. The presentation will be in Serbian, and we will have the translation of Gojko's presentation on actually on your screen. Izvolite, Gojko.
Thank you. Autorska I reprografska prava u Srbiji nisu dobro zaštićena ni sa stanovišta postojećeg zakona, niti u samoj konkretnoj praksi. I to pogađa naravno kako interese autora, tako i njihovih izdavača, ali usporava I u mnogo čemu komplikuje razvoj čitavog društva. Možda je paradoksalno, ali su autorska prava najbolje zaštićena u onom oblasti izdavaštva koja je najviše razvijena, dakle u klasičnom, odnosno štampanom izdavaštvu. Audio izdavaštvo je u Srbiji nedovoljno razvijeno I to je karakteristično za većinu zemalja koje su veličine Srbije, ali I u tom prostoru postoji audio izdavaštvo, postoji dakle dovoljno prostora za nedoumice, pa čak I za otvorena kršenja autorskih I reprografskih prava. Digitalno izdavaštvo u Srbiji se razvija u proteklih nekoliko godina, nedovoljno brzo, nedovoljno entuzijastično, ali postoji čitav niz izdavača koji se uključio u pitanje digitalnog izdavaštva. I tu postoje dva problema. Jedno je činjenica da globalni digitalni marketi, kao što je recimo iTunes ili Google Play ili Nook ili Kobo, ne distribuiraju svoje sadržaje za uređaje koji su autorizovani u Srbiji, objašnjavajući to tehnički komplikovanim, nesavršenim ili nesigurnim oblicima virtualne naplate elektronskog sadržaja, dok je druga okolnost da postojeći zakon o autorskim pravima u Srbiji ne prepoznaje digitalno izdavaštvo kao poseban tip izdavaštva, pa samim tim ni autorska prava nisu dobro zaštićena, već sa čitav niz digitalnih sadržaja koji podležu autorskim pravima nalazi na različitim platformama, pa čak I na društvenim mrežama u potpuno slobodnom korišćenju, što teško oštećuje interese autora i njihovih izdavača. Prema postojećim zakonskim rješenjima u Srbiji, javne biblioteke ne plaćaju bibliotečku taksu za knjige koje iznajmljuju svojim korisnicima, a isto tako distributeri ili proizvođači uređaja na kojima se mogu umnožavati sadržaji u elektronskom pogledu, reprogramskom pogledu, takođe ne plaćaju reprogramsku taksu, tako da je to pitanje koje je i dalje otvoreno u Srbiji. Zavod za intelektualnu svojinu Srbije je nedavno obeležio 100 godina postojanja, rada u različitim formatima, ali sve ovo pokazuje da je pred svima koji se bave knjigom i zaštitom autorskih i reprogramskih prava u Srbiji i dalje vrlo veliki posao, ponekad u nekim segmentima čak pionirski. Zanimljivo je da su u Srbiji autorska i reprogramska prava mnogo bolje zaštićena recimo u oblasti muzike ili oblasti fotografije nego u oblasti izdavaštva ili u oblasti knjige u makom žanru. Poseban problem jeste nepostojanje razvijenih organizacija za zaštitu reprogramskih prava u oblasti knjige i oblasti izdavaštva. I postoji naravno jedan poseban problem. Od početka 2000. godina u Srbiji je nastao veliki broj fakulteta različitim oblastima, pogotovo u oblasti humanistike i društvenih studija. I nikada u Srbiji nije bilo više studenta i profesora fakulteta, ali to nije ni uopšte uticalo na porast tiraža knjiga iz oblasti humanistike i društvenih studija uopšte. Naprotiv, moglo bi se reći čak da je u tom periodu došlo do određene stagnacije tiraža knjiga iz oblasti humanistike. Vrlo često su mnogi fakulteti u Srbiji podložni kritici zbog kvaliteta studija ili zbog kvaliteta svog rada, ali ne postoji čak ni vrlo tiha i obazriva kritika kršenja autorskih i reprogramskih prava od strane samih fakulteta različitim formatima, od činjenice da postoje fotokopirnice kojima se nelegalno umnožava sadržaj na samim fakultetima, do toga da čak i mnogi fakulteti imaju portale na kojima su pojedini segmenti zapravo oličenje kršenja autorskih i reprogramskih prava. To bi bila, dakle, kratka slika stanja u pogledu zaštite prava, autorskih i reprogramskih prava u digitalnom i klasičnom izdavaštvu u Srbiji, a moguće rešenje bi zapravo trebalo tražiti u implementiranju dobrih iskustava iz prakse i zakonskih rešenja. U tom smislu Evropska unija bi nam mogla biti dobro iskustvo, a svakako iskustvo kanadskih izdavača i kanadske vlade jeste ono što ćemo svakako u svojim daljem radu imati u vidu.
Thank you, Gojko. We are kind of a bit running late, so we'll have one more panelist for the second panel. So I would like to invite Mr. Jack David, the co-publisher and editor of the ACW Press. Hello, Jack.
Hello. How are you?
Thank you for joining us. Jack was actually kind enough to join us and to talk about digital publishing and audiobooks in Canada, as actually it was a recommendation of your peer publishers to invite you to speak to this panel because this is your kind of your specialty. Other than that, there is another connection of Jack with Serbia, and this is actually our famous illustrator, as Catherine Mitchell said. It's Dušan Petričić. Your publishing company just had his last book, right? Actually, it's Rick Saluti's book, Gideon's Bible, that our Dušan Petričić illustrated, and I just read the review, and it's a great book and a full recommendation for the publishers in the region to look after it, right? So, now, as we say, the floor is yours. So, and we would be really pleased to hear about this interesting theme, which is not really well developed in Serbia, actually, that part of the publishing industry in Serbia and in North Macedonia, but kind of progressing in a good direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
Thanks for inviting me. we're all used to publishing print books, but recently we found that with the pandemic, digital products have greatly increased. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is that people are traveling not very far, and they get tired of just reading, and they get tired of reading print only. So we have seen, and other publishers have seen, both in Canada and North America, a huge explosion in the sales of books that are sold digitally. And here I'm talking about ebooks, and I'm talking about audiobooks. What kind of explosion? Some people have reported 2, 3, 4 times as much as they saw in a comparable period last year. That's a lot. And what this means is that unless you have the material ready to go when something like this happens, you're going to miss out on the boat. So what does digital publishing mean? Well, it means that you've been able to take all your intellectual property and you've been able to transpose it into other formats. And that means ebooks and audiobooks. Let me start with ebooks. For a long time, there was a hope that all the material that people read would be taken in from their computers or their handheld device. And I can remember at the book fair in New York years ago that everybody was hoping that the CD-ROM would be the answer. And there was a whole section marked off in this huge convention for CD-ROM products. Next year, gone. No CD-ROM products left. And gradually people began to come up with a common platform so that we could produce ebooks that could be read on anything. And then Amazon stepped in. And Amazon, the big bully, decided that they would make a lot of money by not only producing the device, the Kindle, but also on managing the content. And so they now dominate the ebook market. To what extent? I would say probably 70%. There are other companies as well, like Kobo in Canada, but none of them have been able to come close to the dominance that Amazon has. And then it occurred to Amazon that now that they had all this material in digital form, why don't they provide it in a way that people can listen to the books? And that became the beginning of Audible, also owned by Amazon. My publisher, my co-publisher friend, David Caron, decided about 4 or 5 years ago that audiobooks was likely in the future. So he made a determined effort to travel around, especially to the US, and investigate what other companies, usually the big multinationals, HarperCollins, Penguin Random House, what they were doing, how they were preparing it. And he also visited with Audible, which was based at that point in New Jersey. And he saw the studios. Everybody was willing to talk to him, talk about pricing, talk about formats, talk about who was actually going to read the books. And when he came back, 2 things happened. One was he knew more about audiobooks than anybody in Canada. The second thing was the government of Canada decided that they would support accessibility. And what this meant in practice was that they had a bunch of money, which they were going to give to publishers to make the books more accessible, either as ebooks or as audiobooks. Money for digital products sounds like a no-brainer. So we hopped on board, we put some applications in, and they began to see that we could not only produce audiobooks, but we could produce them for third parties as well. And so now other publishers in Canada come to us with their books and say, could you help us produce the audio version of this book? And we say, yes, we can. And we do it at a very low rate, a very low margin. And and the government pays for much of the cost. What's happening in the audiobook market? The actual sales of audiobooks has skyrocketed, gone from almost negligible up to somewhere in the range of 2 to 3% of the overall book market in North America. Doesn't sound like a lot, 2 to 3%, but we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars and all kinds of companies springing up to find the books, come up with the narrators, work with the studios, and then distribute the books. So if you are able to work with the digital files, and if you're able to produce the ebook, and if you're able to produce the audiobook, then you will have another stream of revenue that print books does not develop for you. And in fact, in terms of digital sales, initially, the ebook was considered to be something that would overtake print books because it was growing so quickly. It got to the point of around 20% of overall book revenues and then began to fall back. It is now sitting at somewhere around 15 to 17% for the average trade publisher. One of the great things about ebooks is that they don't get returned. They are bought and paid for, and they stay in your inventory. And all you have to do once you have it all set up is hit the button to say, send this ebook to somebody who wants to buy it. So it's a great thing. And the pricing floats around a bit, but it's fairly well stable at this point. Roughly 30% of what the print book would be. That's a loose figure. So my recommendation is that everybody get on board, discover that you can now get somewhere around 20% of your revenue at some point from both the combination of ebooks and audiobooks. And if the publishers come together as a group, it'll be much easier to handle the various technical issues. But once they're there, and once you have the inventory, then there's no warehouse involved. It's just a big computer, and you hit the button and send the stuff. That's about all I can tell you, apart from the fact that it's more profitable than the print side.
Thank you, Jack. I'm sure that you now are going to have a lot of people who've been reaching you out for this, more stories about that. And actually, we heard a lot of interesting panelists so far, and interesting kind of new information that you were willing to share with us. And just because we have over 50, as far as I know now, by our technical support to provide us with that information, over 50 people who are following this panel. And if there is anyone who would like to kind of raise any kind of question, please, ask the question by chatting. There is a chat sort of a solution for that, and we will be able to reply to your questions at the end of the forum after the fourth panel. We actually announced as the last panelist for. Thank you, Jack, for joining us, and I'm sure that we'll be in touch with you in the coming days and months. We actually wanted to also have Dan Trajkovski from Skopje, the North Macedonian publisher, with us for the second panel. But because we are running late, we will be having him for the fourth panel, and he would be able to present you the North Macedonian publishing on the fourth panel. So for the Canadian publishers, I would just recommend to stay with us for that panel. So with this, I would close the second panel and would invite the panelists which are announced for the third panel to join us. The third panel, which is related to the International Translation Grant Program from Canada and from Serbia. We have on this panel 3 speakers. And I would like now to invite our Canadian speakers from the Canada Council for the Arts, Megan Mabey and Megan Leduc, the Associate Program Officers who are engaged. Hi. Hi, Megan. How are you? Welcome. And I'm sure that you found this forum interesting so far, but the publishers from both ends are actually looking forward to hear about your program because of the many opportunities for cooperation that actually the Canada Council for the Arts was able and I'm sure will be able to support. And as Ambassador mentioned at the beginning of the panel, there are actually over 300 Canadian titles translated into Serbian and over in the last 15 years, and almost 50 to in North Macedonia, in Macedonian and Albanian, and many of those titles have been translated with the support of the at that time International Translation Grant Program, which runs by the Canada Council for the Arts. My understanding now the program changed the name. It's Arts Abroad, right?
That's correct.
And it would be great if you could provide us with the information on the sort of what is the actually new information on the program and kind of the tools how to reach out, because the platform is a bit different and the publishers actually wanted to find out how to reach out to you easily.
Yeah, definitely. I'm also presenting today with my colleague, Megan Leduc, so I don't see her being presented right now. Oh, there she is.
Hi, Megan.
Megan.
Hi.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to start sharing my screen. Okay, share screen. Perfect. Okay. All right, and sorry. There we go. So is everything presenting okay on your end?
Excellent.
Perfect. Okay. So thank you so much for having us here today. It's really exciting for me. I've been working on the translation program for 3 or 4 years now. So while I wish I could be there with you in person, hopefully I can in the future. But it's really exciting to touch base with all of you. As was mentioned, we're from the Canada Council for the Arts, and we're going to talk to you today about the portal, the translation program, and if anyone has any questions, we can go from there. As mentioned, my name is Megan Mabey. I'm an Associate Program Officer in Arts across Canada and Arts Abroad.
And I'm Megan Leduc. I'm also an Associate Program Officer, and I've been with Council for about 6 years now. All right, so to start off, even though we're having this meeting virtually, we would like to start off with a land acknowledgement. So the Canada Council for the Arts acknowledges that our offices located in Ottawa, Ontario, are on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. The Canada Council for the Arts respects and affirms the inherent rights of the Indigenous peoples of this land, and the Council has and will continue to honor the commitments we have made to the Indigenous nations and peoples.
All right, so today our presentation is relatively short, but we are going to touch on the Canada Council and who we are and what we do. Then we'll speak about the portal, which is the new system that was mentioned, and how to create an account and a profile, and then we'll go through the Arts Abroad translation program. So the Canada Council for the Arts, we are Canada's public arts funder. We have a mandate to foster and promote the study and enjoyment of and the production of works in the arts. We champion and invest in artistic excellence through our grants, services, and prizes to Canadian artists and arts organizations. We provide funding to individual artists, artistic groups and collectives, arts organizations, arts professionals, and international arts organizations. So for today's presentation, we will be speaking specifically about the International Literary Book Publisher Profile and applying for translation funding.
So in order to apply for grants, you're going to have to create an account and submit a profile. So we're going to take you through those steps. So first up, everything is done through our website. So that's canadacouncil.ca. And in the upper right corner, you'll see a green button titled Portal. This button will be available on all of our websites, and it will always take you to what we call our portal for applying for grants. So by clicking on this, it'll take you to this landing page. And to start the process, you'll be going to the login or create an account button. Of course, there's several options for Canadians to apply for grants, but for today's presentation, we're going to stick specifically to creating an international literary book publisher account and profile. So once you click on create an account, you will have to enter a username and a password, and an email will be sent to you to confirm your email. And once your email has been confirmed, you will continue through to the site and you'll select organization as the type of profile you're going to be creating. And you'll be asked to enter the name of a person that is responsible for the account and the organization's name. So once that has been submitted, your account has been created, and that means step one is complete. This step does not mean you have access to grants just yet. So to access the Canada Council's programs, you must submit a profile. To do this, you must click on the Complete Your Applicant Profile button, which will bring you here. And after selecting Complete Your Applicant Profile, you will be brought to this Dashboard Account Manager page. Here, there are three parts that need to be completed, which are your applicant profile, application information, and submitting for validation. All right, so here you're going to be selecting the type of profile that you're presenting. And as we mentioned before, we're specifically going for literary book publisher. So first you're going to have to select foreign arts organization, and then literature, and finally international literary book publisher. So once you've done this, a pop-up will appear outlining the eligibility criteria for this profile. And for international literary book publishers, you must be located outside of Canada and publish literary books in languages other than English and French. You must also have been in operation for at least 2 years, have previously published a minimum of 4 eligible titles, have a professional distribution. And once you've reviewed this information, you can select Add to Profile.
So a quick note about the eligibility criteria of 4 eligible titles. For reference, these are the categories the Canada Council supports. So fiction and short stories, poetry, drama, graphic novels, and young adult literature and literary nonfiction. So these are the same categories supported by the translation component, which we'll speak about later in the presentation. So once you've added international literary book publisher to your profile and saved and continued, you'll be asked to provide more information about your organization. This includes providing your mandate, mission statement, and a history of your organization. This is a good place to provide any information that can help staff validate your profile using the eligibility mentioned previously. Here you can outline your publishing history, your distribution, and provide any links that you think that will be helpful to the process.
Finally, once you've saved, you can submit your profile for validation. This is the part that a lot of people forget to do. Be sure to click the submit button on the profile you want validated. And in this case, it will be the International Literary Book Publisher. And you must also agree to the declaration. And then at the bottom, you will submit for validation. Once this is done, your profile will be sent to Canada Council staff for review, and you will receive a notification in 15 days. As soon as it has been approved, you can apply to the translation component.
All right, so the translation component in its old name used to be International Translation Grants in the Writing and Publishing section, but now it's part of the Arts Abroad program. So in Arts Abroad, our goal is to celebrate the creativity, innovation, and excellence of Canadian artists by helping to bring Canadian works to the world. This program supports artists, arts professionals, groups and organizations to enhance international exposure, undertake artistic exploration or exchanges with international colleagues, and nurture new and existing arts markets in a global context. The translation component provides grants for the translation of Canadian authored literary works for international publication. The categories supported by this component are fiction and short stories, poetry, drama, graphic novels, children's and young adult literature, and literary nonfiction. So in this program, we provide funding for up to 50% of the translator's fee, for a maximum of $20,000. This amount is based on the standard translation rates affecting your country. We also provide $2,000 for promotional expenses related to the translated book. So to apply to this program, you need to submit a copy of a contract with the rights holder. That's either the Canadian publisher, author, or literary agent. You also need to submit a signed copy of the contract with the translator. You need to also submit a biography for the translator, and it's a good idea to make sure that this biography includes a list of previous translations. You also need to provide an original copy of the book to be translated. This can either be sent by mail or uploaded to your application through the portal. So your application will be assessed using weighted criteria. This criteria is outlined in the guidelines. The first is impact. Within your application, be sure to speak to the impact the translation will have on the author. It is not enough to say that it will just reach a new audience. This criteria makes up 50% of the overall score of the application. Applications that don't score well usually lack information in this category. So be specific as possible. Some things to consider would be, will there be events involving the writer or the translator? What kind of promotion will be done? Will you aim to translate more of their work in the future? And if you've already translated some of their work, what will you do to further promote the writer's profile? The second criteria is artistic merit. Here, outline the work. Don't assume that the assessors know the author or the title you want to translate. Provide a list of awards or accolades won by the book or the author, or provide excerpts of reviews. Give us context for why you want this book to be translated. And finally, for the criteria of feasibility, we're looking for the experience your publishing house and the translator have to undertake this project. Does your publishing house have a history of working with translations? What kind of results have you seen previously? You must provide a biography for your translator, and it should include a list of previous translations if possible. This list should demonstrate that they have the capacity to translate literary works from the original language. If your translator does not have a lot of experience with literary translations, outline how your publishing house will support them through this project.
All right, application limits. So you can receive up to 2 translation grants per year. Each application can only include 1 title. And for us, our application year runs from March 1st to the end of February, so either the 28th or the 29th. And the application deadlines and cutoff dates. So you can apply any time before the translation is completed. Here are the 3 following, upcoming cutoff dates that we have. So we have January 13th, 2021, and then June and October 2021. So results can take up to 3 months after these cutoff dates.
Mm-hmm. So results vary based on the available budget, the number of applications received, and the strength of those applications. It's important to keep in mind that this is a competitive process, and the more details you can provide, the better. In 2019, our success rate in Arts Abroad translation was 55 to 60%. So at any time throughout this process, feel free to contact the Canada Council or myself or the Arts Abroad team. We are here to help you through each step. We have several email addresses available here, so email info@Canada-Council or assistance@Canada-Council for any questions you have about creating your profile. And then you can always contact me at megan.maybe@canadacouncil.ca or artsabroad@canadacouncil.ca. And thank you again. It's really great to connect with all of you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Oh, I don't think we can hear you if you're speaking.
Okay. Do you hear me
yes.
now?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's okay.
Sorry. I just I wanted to actually thank both of you, Megan Mabe and Megan
Yes.
Leduc, for this really very interesting presentation. I'm sure that the Serbian publishers as well as the North Macedonian publishers will definitely look after Canadian titles now, as now they would actually have assistance if they are not really sure how to eventually apply for the grants with the Canada councils. And as a recommendation that, like, if they're looking for the titles, just to look for the titles that are either the one that are actually awarded titles, because they, in that sense, they would get a better luck or like more chances to get the grant, or to some, like if it is a special kind of title, that was my understanding, like if it is a nonfiction title, just to watch out that it is not a textbook, because otherwise, it could be a conflicting. Thank you both. Sorry, please go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, titles don't always have to be award winning. We just ask that if it's not like a big name that we recognize, just to make sure that things are explained in your application. Reviews always help. Context for the work is always great to provide.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And please stay on this panel, because maybe at the end of the panel, we'll have some questions for you, either from the people who are with us here today, or maybe from other publishers who are actually attending this forum virtually. So now I would like to invite your colleague from the Ministry of Culture and Information from Serbia. It's Mladen Vesković, Mr. Mladen Vesković, who is actually the senior advisor at the Ministry of Culture and Information of the Republic of Serbia. Hello, Mladen. Welcome to the panel.
Hello, Gica.
Mladen is actually the person who was very much involved in the cooperation between the publishers and the publishing industry with Canada and Serbia from the very beginning. And first being a publisher himself, and then switching to the job with the government. With his initial experience, it gave him an opportunity to actually look into what's really necessary and what is essential to enhance the sort of the promotion of the Serbian literature internationally. And with that in mind, we are really pleased to actually have this information and to announce that actually the Serbian version of the Canada Council Translation Grant Program was actually based originally on the Canadian model, and of course developed further. And we were really looking forward to hear Mladen and to actually in his sort of recommendation for Canadian publishers for looking into Serbian titles, Serbian writers, and the opportunity to apply for the Serbian grant. Mladen, please.
First of all, Gita, thank you for this invitation and possibility to be able to talk with you, with our esteemed colleagues from Canada, from Macedonia, and of course, my dear colleagues in studio with you. because exactly as you said before, these are the people who almost 20 years ago started the intensive collaboration between Serbia and Canada. And Canada, we must say and repeat this, was one of the first countries who really strongly support cultural exchange of Serbia with the world abroad 20 years ago. In this context, you were also one of the persons who strongly pushed this initiative. And after first contact, we really were in position to take into consideration few different type of translation grants. And I might say after 30, 40, 14 years of experience and deal with this translation grant program in Serbia, there's still, let's call it now, a Canadian model of support is one of the simple and the most simple and the clearest example of easy to handle grant programs. So we really adopted, and after 13 years of experience so far with this program, we support more than 600 titles all over the world. We so far had more than 1,000 applications, and the Ministry of Culture invests a little bit more than 1 million euros in translation of Serbian literature abroad. So I hope so that a lot of things can be done and the process can be increased. And I really would like to see in the years above that more Canadian publishers will be interested in this type of the collaboration. In Serbian publishers, they can find really reliable partners who can offer good, interesting titles. And also in the Ministry of Culture of Serbia can find a reliable partner in terms of meaning of support for the translation. Basically, the rules are the same, more or less like in Canada. What means that applicant should send an application after examination of the our committee. Results will be public at the website of the Ministry of Culture, and until the end of fiscal years, but mean until the end of December of the current year, book should be published. Upon then, funds will be transferred and paid directly upon the agreement to the account of the foreign publisher. So that's the situation we have here. And of course, one thing I would like to add is that in the early 2000s, the collaboration with Canadian publishers were really vivid. But in past 7 to 8 years, very rarely some of them send an application for the both English-speaking and French-speaking publisher from Canada. So if there is any possibility to start once again or to change this process in positive terms of meaning, maybe the next Frankfurt can be a good opportunity for this. We would really be happy to see again that as much as the Serbian publisher like to work with Canada Council for the Arts, we would like also to strongly support Canadian publishers if they would like to publish more Serbian titles in all fields of humanities and fiction. So we are really open to any further question from the side of Canadian colleagues.
Thank you, Mladen. Do you also have a link to share with us to present to the Canadian publishers how to and where to apply?
Unfortunately, I've prepared it, but I get some problem with my computer, so I switched to the mobile phone just to be able to contact you. But if you would like, I can send directly to you, or for any other interesting publisher, I can send directly text of translation grant program and application forms.
Okay, great. We'll share with them later, because they all left their email addresses.
Yeah.
Yes. And if they're interested in the program, they can also write to us, and then we will, pass over the contact to you.
Yes,
Thank
and
you,
one
Martin.
more thing, just to say, the grant will be announced early in January. What means if they have any idea after the discussion or B2B meeting with Serbian publishers, they have 1 month to prepare the documents and send it early in January.
Okay, and like we are also going to hear later from our colleague and Mr. Vladislav Bajac, who actually was one of the recipients of that grant, who is actually having his the selected collection of books of Serbian authors translated into English already. So we'll talk about that later at the end of the fourth panel. And like I would also like to kind of turn attention to the Serbian and North Macedonian publishers to look into the Lira Canada Books website, as they will find out actually the two catalogs, which are the rights, the catalogs Rights Canada and the catalog on the so-called Canadian Studies collection, and they will find all kind of titles who are actually recommended by a selected jury on like for the recommendation for translation. And so please check on the Lira Canada Books for new titles which are just announced for actually for this year. We are, before we close this panel, you actually saw at the beginning of this panel, you saw actually a collection and actually selected books that's been already translated into Serbian. And we just wanted to show you that it was really a variety of all kinds of titles, from not only the children's books or the young adults books, but also like non-fiction, and of course mostly novels. But like this is we have all kind of contemporary writers actually now who are available in Serbian and North Macedonian bookstores. And with that in mind, I would like to actually close this panel in saying that, like, if as Megan said before, even if the writer is not really well known to the international reading audience, please, go ahead for the Canadian publishers and offer that to your Serbian colleagues. You all actually got the contact information of the Serbian and North Macedonian publishers who are interested in Canadian books, and it's also vice versa. The Serbian and North Macedonian publishers got their contact information of the Canadian colleagues who actually registered to this forum. So like, please, use this opportunity, and then, we would have B2B meetings at the end, but like, we would also encourage you to actually continue with that cooperation later after this forum. I would now like to invite the panelists from the fourth panel to join us. Okay. So like, I would like now to invite the panelists for the fourth panel to join us. It's we have announced Linda Leith. I would like to first announce Linda Leith, the writer, editor, and publisher of the Linda Leith Publishing. Hello, Linda. Welcome to Belgrade. Welcome to Belgrade again. I would like now to invite the panelists for the fourth panel.
Madam Ambassador, distinguished colleagues from Canada and from Serbia, greetings. As you've all been hearing something about what happened in, 17, 16, 15, and fewer years ago, in terms of cooperation between Serbian and Canadian publishing. And I'm one of the fortunate individuals who was part of a delegation to the very exciting Belgrade Book Fair after the translation of my own book, Marrying Hungary, appeared in Serbian. I also, I think it was the following year, attended the Salon du Livre de Québec in Quebec City, when Serbian publishers were featured. These were wonderful experiences for me as a writer, and at the time also as a festival director. I'd like to say, and it was a great pleasure to hear from you, Olgica. I'm enormously, and I have been enormously impressed by the work of the Canadian Embassy in Belgrade, both then, in those days, and now, and most particularly by that of Olgica Marinkovic, Diplomatic Advocacy and Education Officer. As you will have gathered from the remarks of Ambassador Chaba and a few other speakers, the bridges built between Canadian and Serbian publishers resulted in the publication of an impressive number of books in translation in both directions. So I wasn't completely surprised to hear back from the indefatigable Olgica again, but I was pleased, and I am delighted to be able to participate in today's Publishers Forum. Thank you for inviting me. Back in those days, the days of the Canada being featured at the Belgrade Book Fair and the Serbian publishing at the Salon du Livre de Québec, I was president and artistic director of the Blue Metropolis Montreal International Literary Festival, to which I was very happy to be able to invite Serbian writers, including Vladislav Bajak, whom it will be a pleasure to see again today. I'm still a writer, but now I'm no longer festival director. I haven't been for 10 years. I'm a publisher, as you will have gathered, having moved on from Blue Metropolis and set up Linda-Leith Publishing, which is a literary press specializing in fiction, nonfiction, and books for young people. As a publisher, I have been, excuse me, I've been very much aware of the impact of the pandemic on the book trade in Canada, and to some extent internationally, ever since March of this year. And I'm sure you all have your own experiences. The worst of it for many of us was the sheer volume of book returns in the spring and summer here in Canada. At some point this summer, the Literary Press Group of Canada, which is the group of literary presses to which my company belongs, was recording an average return rate of 197%, which was catastrophic. That has since settled down, I'm very glad to say, and at the last count, we were averaging only 43% returns. And in fact, September 2020 sales were in fact stronger than those in September 2019, which is very welcome news. The Association of Canadian Publishers, which is the larger group to which my company belongs, has been surveying its members assiduously and recording our responses in order to provide government with the data they need to make public policy decisions that affect the industry, the publishing industry. And the most recent of the reports that the ACP has circulated is dated just last week, November 10th. And the result shows that, and I quote, "Optimism has increased since the spring, though not for all." A few points that I will mention from their results. Cash flow remains a primary business concern, in some cases dramatically, but revenues from digital sales and ebook sales have not replaced traditional print book sales. Bookstore orders have been lower than usual, and there are fears that returns will be high again in early 2021. Publishers in Canada anticipate lower than usual sales over the whole year 2020. Some precipitous declines of 60% or higher, and a much larger proportion of 20% decrease or thereabouts. And the survey shows that a majority of publishers will continue to require emergency support from government agencies. We have been fortunate to have the support of federal government agencies, including the Canada Council for the Arts and the Canada Book Fund at the Department of Canadian Heritage, as well as that of other agencies, of SODEC here in Quebec, and other provincial funding bodies elsewhere in the country. And these have done everything they can to keep us in business in spite of the challenges that we have been facing and which we will be facing for some time to come. My colleague Carole Boutin from Group Librex will be speaking about the measures taken in Quebec, and I'm going to limit myself to the federal agencies' responses to the crisis. And it seems clear, as you will have gathered, that the emergency measures taken have been instrumental in our ability to maintain capacity, or more or less maintain capacity. Including some of the measures taken include an emergency support fund for cultural, heritage, and sport organizations, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, the Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program, and the Canada Emergency Business Account, which is a loan to publishers, all or most of which is to be repaid within a couple of years. Each of these has different criteria and eligibility requirements, so that some of these measures are very useful for some companies and others for other companies. The availability of these programs, all of which are on the details of which are all on the Government of Canada website. So their availability, as well as more recent support for distributors, and the expansion and extension of some of these programs, as well as less tangible but very much appreciated support and flexibility on the part of some of the agencies, has provided Canadian publishers with a lifeline. In short, we will get through this more or less bruised, though we may be. I hope the same is true of you in Serbia. I suspect that most of us Canadians attending this forum today, and many others who were unable to join us, but who will be very interested in the results of this day, will love the possibility of collaborating with Serbian publishers to make your books available to our readers and to make our books available to yours. I would like to thank the Embassy. I would like to thank Olgica and the Association of Serbian Professional Publishers. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. You've been really someone who was able to get and to present an insight of both publishing, because you've been here to Belgrade at the Belgrade Book Fair, and as you said, like you were actually instrumental in actually having Serbian publishers and writing at the Blue Metropolis Festival or Salon du Livre de Quebec. Thank you for your presentation, and we are going to continue with the panel, which is actually related to the situation with the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on the publishing industry. I would like now to invite Madame Carole Boutin, the novembre. Okay, so like just because of the technical problems, I'm sorry about this, Carol, that we have to cut it short, but like we'll get back to you. I would like to invite Simon Leduc. He's hello Simon.
Hello.
Of the Cato Sanku. And actually a sort of a friend of a friend. I'm sorry, I'm just I got the recommendation for you from our North Macedonian publisher, and then Trajkovsky, and then I read such actually a great sort of story about what you do, other than being an awarded Canadian children's publisher, right? Especially at the Bologna Book Fair, but also a founder of one interesting association. You may tell us about more. It's an international association of publishers, but a different one. I'd like to hear from you, like what's all this about, and I'm sure that the audience would be interesting to hear. So please.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. This was a last-minute proposal, and so I don't have a speech ready or anything. But yes, it's not really an association. The Publishers Without Borders was just an idea that came out of my head. I have a lot of ideas that come out of my head. Some are good, some are less good. But this one was just about connecting with my colleagues around the world. You know that we have the opportunity through great book fairs like Frankfurt and Bologna and others around the world, Sharjah, Guadalajara, and others, an opportunity to meet with great publishers from around the world. And this pandemic was basically shutting down all those opportunities to connect. When we are in these book fairs, we're not just selling books and rights, as we are presently talking about. We're also connecting with humans, and that's probably the richest part of what I believe is the reason for those fairs. I don't sell as many books as I would like to, but I meet so many great people. And because of the pandemic, this idea sprouted that maybe we could create a place on the internet, on Facebook, where we could just talk about being publishers and talk about suffering and opportunities and ideas that are sprouting all over the world. And I must say, I'm impressed by the tenacity and the strength of publishers around the world. I'm impressed by some of the ideas that have come out of this situation. I think we all agree that the pandemic was not something we all wanted, but I'm impressed by how many have come up with great ideas through this pandemic. This one example here is, I mean, we're now using technology to talk with people in Serbia, and just last week I was talking with people in Shanghai, and we were connecting with Spanish publishers a couple of weeks back. I don't know if we would have been doing that this year had it not been for the pandemic. So just maybe a smart idea. Right now we're up over 6,000 members, I think, or maybe 3,000. I forget the number. And I have to give credit mostly to the rest of the team, because Prashant out of India is really the one managing everything today. I'm a lot more in the background than I am in the foreground. So that's the idea behind PWB. And I just want to say that I was listening to Linda, and I know Linda personally, and I know that the situation isn't easy for many, many publishers. But I think in terms of children's publishing, I think things have been not so bad, perhaps because parents are thinking, I need something better than a computer to keep my kids busy while they're asked not to go to school. So there you go. That was my idea.
Merci, Simon. Thank you so much. Like I just thought, we thought that it would be really something new and refreshing for the publishers from all three countries to hear what you do, other than your regular job, right? But it's really something that connects people and to connect publishing and to connect actually you through the problems that you share. And
yes, I invite all publishers who are listening in, no matter where you're from. If you're not on the PWB, please do join, because we want to hear your ideas, your strategies. It's not a selling group, right? We actually, in our rules, you're not allowed to even have a hyperlink to your website or to your books. So we're not there to do business. There are other opportunities to do that, including book fairs and discussions like that. LinkedIn, we have a LinkedIn group for business. But this one is just about human sharing and just talking about good ideas and good strategies. We've heard some stuff coming out of Africa, out of India, out of Brazil. So if you have some things to share and you just want a place to listen and laugh and talk, please join PWB. We'd be happy to have you. We have over 100 countries on the PWB. So that's a bit, it's not as many as the United Nations, but it's pretty close.
And unfortunately, you all share the pandemic challenges right now. And thank you so much for joining us for just out of with such a short notice. And I'm sure that I hope that you enjoy the presenters and the presentation at the panel. Please stay with us. I'd like to ask Carol to actually return to the panel. And Carole, bonjour. Bonjour, Carole. On n'a pas de problème maintenant, n'est-ce pas? C'est bon? Le son est bon? Oui. Okay. Well, the sound is now great. So okay. let me just get back to sort of the present to present you. Bon, Carole, c'est la directrice des contrats et des droits de compagnie Libre Group, de compagnie d'édition, mais aussi Carole est aussi vice-présidente du conseil d'administration de Libre Canada Books. I just wanted to actually share that Carole is actually sitting in many different chairs, and she's also responsible for many sort of burning issues and dealing with many burning issues to the Publishers Association, among them the ANEL of the French-speaking, of the Francophone publishers. And we actually wanted to invite you to give us your kind of insight of the challenges that the Canadian publishing is facing right now with the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay. So I can tell you that in French Canada, mostly I would say in the province of Quebec, we have to deal with a very, very difficult situation because the bookstores have been closed from May 11 until March 17, from March 17 until May 11. So we had to take very important decisions in our group. For example, we had, of course, to postpone the release of many books. We had to decide what kind of promotion we would do if we want to continue to sell books, mostly digital books, I would say. So we have decided to put more money on digital promotion. In fact, what happened during this pandemic is that bookstores decided to sell online orders, and it worked very well at the end. It worked very well for them. The most important thing is that they didn't send us not so many returns, because we were afraid of what would happen after the reopening, if how the booksellers would react, you know. And everything is mostly, I think we are all optimistic for the rest of the year. We have received subsidies from the SODEC, which is the organism in the province of Quebec who gives subsidies to publishers. They had extra money for booksellers too. This money could serve to buy sanitary equipment and to pay for postal charges, because of course it represented a lot of things to deal with for the booksellers. So another thing that was very good, I would say, for the French-Canadian market is that our government started a promotion campaign. It was called Acheter Québécois, which means buy Québécois products. And so they invited people to buy books from Quebec authors. So because you know that in Quebec, we receive also books from France, and those books are sold in our bookstores. So what happened with this pandemic is that Quebec readers, Quebec clients decided to go, after the reopening, they decided to go into the bookstores and buy books from Quebec authors, which is very good for all the Quebecois market, I would say. And recently we have received some information from Gaspard. Gaspard is the organism who have all the statistics on books or on book sales in Quebec. And what we can see now is that at the end, even if we had this pandemic, we will have, at the end of the year, we will probably have sold more fiction Québécois books in Quebec. I mean, books written by Quebec authors. So this is really good, because it means that people here decided to buy Québécois products and also to buy Québécois books. So it's very good for all of us. I think that this pandemic also helped us to discover that we have to work differently. We have to adapt ourselves. On my side, for example, I had to do many Zoom meetings and Teams meeting with international publishers, with co-agents, and it was good because we could see people and present our books, present our catalogs, and probably make new connections with new people. So everything is not wrong with this pandemic, I guess, but of course, we all want to go back in international fairs. We want to connect directly with people. We want to present our own books. And I really hope that next year at the Frankfurt Book Fair, we will all be there together and to talk to each other and to talk about how this pandemics will have changed our way of working, our way of selling books, of making books. And I think at the end it will be good, I hope so, for all the publishers. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. It's definitely after this experience in 2020, the publishing industry is not going to be the same. You know, there are now some new ways of promoting the books, and I'm sure some of those will stay, as you said. Thank you for your great sort of presentation. And now I would like to invite our guest publisher from North Macedonia, Dejan Trajkovski. Hello, Dejan.
Hi. Hi, Olgica.
Well, I'm really very pleased, and because I know you personally, but other than that, really, like, it is great that you are the one who is now representing, in a way, North Macedonian publishing, and I'm really glad that not you, but like other 5 publishers from North Macedonia, both from Macedonian and from Albanian-speaking sort of industry, is actually present at this panel. And it would be great if you could explain to us, or just maybe brief our Canadian audience right now on the Macedonian publishing industry, on the challenges you're facing now, as you actually heard that Carol was presenting, you know, what's going on with the bookstores during the pandemic, and I'm sure that you'll have some information to share with us regarding North Macedonia at this time, you know, because you are also having your own challenges. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be among friends, even though it's only online, to see again familiar faces as yours, Mladen, Vladislav, Gojko, Simon, and so on and so on. Thank you for the invitation. Regarding the topic, yes, of course, we are facing with many issues that arose from the pandemic. Firstly, I would say that it is, for example, we can see now that the invoices, for example, from the libraries towards the publishers are being lower in big number of cases. In some cases, even up to 80%. So that's a huge difference in the income to the publishers. That's one of the examples we are facing. There are many things that are, of course, not normal as the previous year. Also, myself as a festival organizer, especially faced a very, very different situation. For example, the costs because of the pandemic of organizing the festival, not to mention the problems that we faced with inviting the writers with a physical presence in Skopje, etc., etc. Only the costs related to the pandemic were like around 20 to 25% more than the previous years, when we organize a normal edition of the literature festival. I believe that the answer to many of the questions, partial answer, of course, is going digital, which in our country is not so developed, but I believe that digital sales of digital books, also audiobooks, will help towards the revenue. The good thing is that September and October were good months. The sales were more or less similar than September and October in 2019. So that's let's say, and let's hope, promising. I would also like to mention, as we were talking before the this forum, that also Macedonian Ministry of Culture has an program that covers the costs of translation of our writers. So I would be really happy to, even though I'm not related anyhow to the ministry, but I would be happy to help to any of Canadian publishers if they're interested to know more about the program or more about writers from our country. More or less, the program is similar to the Serbian one. So what you have heard from our friend Mladen Veskovic, more or less, it can be applied to the Macedonian program. Also, Olgica, I would like to add that even now the topic is pandemic and how we are facing it. I would like to add that two positive experiences in our country related to the Canadian literature. One is the one that we have organized like 7 or 8 years ago with your help, of course, and with Azam Douti from Shkupi Publishing House from Skopje. And it was called the Days of Canadian Literature in Macedonia back at the time, which was very successful story. And I don't know if you have the information, but now the book from one of the authors that were our guests then, Krista Johansen, is part of the school curriculum. So that's like a huge success. The second successful story is the book that we translated and published very recently. It's a young adult book from Canada, On the Edge, from Leslie Sprout. Was recently, before less than 1 week, nominated for the best young adult book for the Reader's Choice, which is also a nice success, having in mind that they're Canadian books translated in Macedonian language. Olgica?
And I'm sure, like after this, that many Canadian children's and young adults publishers will look after you and your contacts, if not after this B2B, because we apologize that our B2B is going to be a little bit late, but we'll try, to actually be on time for at least the last 20 to 30 minutes. And Dan was really like a great support for promoting Canadian literature in North Macedonia, as he mentioned, with the publishing house Shkupi, which is actually publishing in Albania, as in a way North Macedonia is actually also the country of two voices. So they have the Albanian and publishing in Albanian language and in the Macedonian language, and in a way similar to Canada, not in not in proportions, but with language-wise, definitely. In essence, definitely. If you can also please share with us the link for the translation grant by the Ministry of Culture of North Macedonia for the international publishers, that would be great, and we would be pleased to share it further with the Canadian publishers who are actually following this panel online. And
of course.
And thank you again for being a part of this forum. And as I would like to invite now for the closing remarks one of our sort of organizers of this panel. This is the organizational team, as you could see. And I'm honored to be with them. Vladislav Bajac, the writer, editor, and publisher of Geopoetica, who actually has many connections to Canada other than being just here. As Linda Litt previously mentioned, he was actually invited as a writer to Blue Metropolis Festival some almost 15 years ago, Lada, right?
Yes.
So almost 15 years ago, but also one of the publishers who is constantly publishing Canadian authors. mostly novels. So from the perspective of his sort of interest to Canadian publishing, but also as someone who is really present here in Serbian publishing with something which is unique for the Serbian publishers publishing books in other languages. I would give the word to Vlada now to speak about that part of this sort of panel, and again with the impact of COVID-19 on Serbian publishing. Thank you, Vlada.
Well, thank you very much. I don't know what is the best way to conclude this conversation, by the positive or negative examples, meaning that, well, I will get back in past a little bit by remembering the very excellent organization of the Blue Metropolis Festival and Linda Litt as a backup of that huge project. And this is not just to praise someone, because what was the consequence of those meetings and connections we had in those years was publishing books, and that's the main point that we did. Olgica was also one of the main persons, together with the crew from the Canadian Embassy, who was tour de force of this idea. And what we did later on were really the hundreds of books which we published from Canadian literature and non-fiction parts. I did a lot of books from Canadian authors, but what I was always wanting to do was to show it that it is a two-way street, that we have to show our literature to Canadian market as well. And one of the examples which we did in my company was translating contemporary Serbian authors into English. Those authors were publishing their books in many other publishings in Serbia. And some 10 years ago, the idea started, supported by the Ministry of Culture at the very beginning. Much lower in those last years, unfortunately, but it was one of the examples when we proved that the main point of publishing is believing in your work, being not only forced to do something, but you are convicted in your ideas, and that's how it works. So from these examples which we had by Linda Litt and other people, and the experiences through this corona pandemic problem is all the same everywhere. I don't want to repeat the experiences that were all shown by our colleagues already, because the situation is almost the same. We had this lockdown of selling books, and we had the problem meeting people, and it is still going on. But what we are going to do is to continue, because the very first months of the pandemic was very dangerous situation for books, or obviously, but later on some kind of positive sense started to do some good things from the background. And that's how the books started publishing again, more and more. But of course, so-called live connections between people are something that is really not present anymore, and it is very bad for publishing. Besides the figures, besides the marketing problems, there is something very good, meaning that the ideas of developing and the trying to do this publishing in some new ways, although with old, very known ways, is something that tell us that we should continue. So I will give an example of this Serbian prose in translation series of books which we did in English, trying to show it to the world. And not to forget, we are coming from a very narrow speaking area, so we are not in a connection to and from a very small territory. But what we were in fact granted 2 years ago at the London Book Fair for that series of books. And we were given the one of the Excellence Awards at the London Book Fair, especially for this series of books, which meant not only in a subjective way that we were proud to get some award, but the main point was that it was positive, that if you are eager to do something, then the consequences are there. When I put this idea in a wider consequences regarding this coronavirus, then I think that the publishing will be alive again, because it's a individual idea at the very beginning, continuing in a collective way, but we shouldn't forget that the readers are the main point. And what this crisis showed is that this individualism in reading is still there, even stronger. The fortunate side of the coronavirus situation is that reading is a situation for loneliness, whether you are in a good or a bad position regarding the circumstances. So the reading is going to be there all the time. E-books, audiobooks, or paper books, whatever, but the readers are there, and that's why we do so.
Thank you, Vlado. This is actually really enthusiastic, you know, to actually wrap up this panel. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And just before we actually close this panel, I would just like to actually provide information to our Canadian publishers that we will send them along with the link for to the Canadian and to the Serbian Macedonian publishers, the post-production link of this panel, which will be available on YouTube, so you would be able to share with your colleagues or people who are interested to listen again to this panel. And also that we will be also sending to the Canadian publishers the executive summaries of the Serbian and the North Macedonian market for your further information. And now, as we are closing it, I would like to invite the publishers who actually register for the business-to-business meetings, to the B2B meetings, to join the platform now, according to the sessions that actually they had as of actually a half an hour ago. And just in case that some of you are not able to meet because we are a bit running late, please join actually and meet later at a later date after this forum, as we shared all the contact information with the Canadian and North Macedonian and Serbian publishers. So thank you again to all of us. Merci beaucoup. Hvala vam puno svima I nadamo se, we all hope that it's not going to be, this is the first one, but not going to be the last meeting of the Canadian publishers with the publishers from Serbia and the region. And hope to see you in Frankfurt next year. Thank you.